Okay, let's take a look at this photograph from Hocking Hills. Now, actually, it is a composite. And just to give you a rough idea, we'll take it up a little bit just to look and see if we see anything out of the ordinary. And this is all just different photographs, and we're going to go over the individual ones and what I did and how much I had to do to actually put this together. Because I actually spent some time planning this one out and then also arranging it in a very specific way. And the reason why I say that is because of perspective, environmental conditions, and also the lens I used to take the photographs. Meaning this is one of the photographs right here, and this one is being almost shot straight down because it was photographed with a 16 millimeter lens. So I had to keep that in mind as to how the rest of the photographs should look with them. Now, we will go up to our scratch pad and we'll take a look. I'm going to select my brush here. And just for the record, here is the first one. Here is the second one. Here is the third one. Here is the fourth photo. And this is a combination of the fifth. And what I did was I actually took the same photo of rocks and duplicated it over to actually hide some of the reflections that were in one of the photos that I used that were actually not in these top photos here. So in other words, I was using a photo that had its own reflections, but they should not have been reflecting anything that was actually in the photos above it. And then this photo here, keep in mind, is from Pennsylvania, and the other ones are from Ohio. So what I did was, because they are very similar in actual atmosphere, lighting conditions, rocks and everything about them are very familiar with pretty much being the same. Then I was able to cut different pictures from different places and actually piece them together. I'll turn off the old scratch pad there, and we'll go back to just taking a look and dissecting this piece to see what I did to make it up. And then if there is some interest in this kind of photography or photography manipulation, then I could do some from start to finish and explain what I'm doing on the way. But for now, we'll just take this one already done and just briefly talk about what we did to put it together. Okay, let's take a look at just what I did to piece this together. Now, when I piece multiple images together like this, the first and foremost thing I keep in mind is perspective and proportions. And a lot of that sometimes I see is sometimes lacking in a good quality retouch. But if you don't have those things right, then no matter how good your retouch is, something is going to look a little off. And what I mean by that is, if I zoom in to the background pictures, this photo number 1, I put this one in a specific place because of the perspective. You could see the underneath of the bridge, so you would be obviously looking up at it. Now, all this sounds very simple, but to make sure you keep everything planned for, then this is a picture you're looking up at, and it's also a good ways away. Proportions and perspective. Now, the middle photo, which is number 2 photo, it's a good bit closer, proportions, but then also perspective. You have to figure out where your eye level would be, and it would be about in the middle of these steps. So for that reason, I'm just going to see the very edge of the step, and that's it. Then what I'll do is I'll start seeing the top of the steps as I come down. But being that I photographed the overall picture with a 16 millimeter at the bottom, I based everything off of this photo. Because this photo, it looks like I'm pretty much almost looking straight down at what's right in front of me, whereas I actually have to do a pretty good job of keeping my tripod legs out of the photograph, is how much of an angle you're getting. that would be the angle of it, angle of view would almost be about 97 degrees, somewhere around there. So that's a little bit bigger than a right angle, and that's a pretty wide angle of view. Now, the middle photo, which would be pretty much photo number 3, then what that is actually getting closer. So you're starting to look more down into the water, and then also see just subtle reflections as far as what's going on there. And then obviously photograph number 4 is right in front of you, right below your feet, to give you the illusion that you are standing right there and looking at the entire photo. And then the 5 photo is actually the multiple piece photo, which I actually just duplicated over. And I will show you that and go over this too. But now for the photo number 1, we're going to grab our select tool here and we'll just select that one there. And then what we will do is turn that one off. And this is what it looks like without photo number 1. So you can see with photo number 2, I actually made my own custom cutout and just followed the lay of the land. But then I did make this through the vegetation, my own intricate cutout to match all the vegetation of what I cut out and what I left. But then keep in mind, this little retouch right here is actually what I did was I actually turned off that one right here. Now, if I turn this one off, then that is the retouch of the waterfall, only because I actually shot this photograph at a different shutter speed than this photograph, which actually stops the water in action here, but then it's a blur down here. So just to make these 2 photos look close alike and not leave the obvious open, what I did was I softened this one up with this retouch, and then now this waterfall looks like a blur too, but it's pushed back a ways, but you could still see it enough whether it would have been blurred or not. So I had to keep that in mind for that photo. And then number 2, again, this is where the perspective and proportions are coming into mind, and I had to know where my eye level would be, so it'd be pretty much right across here. And then to duplicate the reflection of the cliff, then I just actually took it and flopped it over. And I had to be careful because sometimes I have other examples floating around out there that just because you flop an object doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a perfect reflection. It all depends on what angle of view you're looking down at the water as to what you'll see as a reflection. And then some of the more intricate parts here. Now, this is the reflection of the actual waterfall and steps. And then with this in mind, what I did was actually keep the reflection of the wall pretty much straightforward where the water was calm, but then actually as the water started getting more, little bit more riffles in it, then I started breaking up the wall, knowing that that reflection wouldn't hold out in moving water. It wouldn't be a nice calm reflection like up in here where the water is calm. And then moving on down here where these are, this is actually what I did was to cover up some of the hard reflections that were in the photo above here of number 3, but then that I really didn't consider as being a part of photo number 2, so I wanted to eliminate or manipulate and change those reflections to better suit what I have going on here now. And then tying all the rocks together between the Pennsylvania photo and the Ohio photos, what I did was then had to maybe possibly make some actual adjustment layers or just to manipulate the color a little bit, just to fine tune it. And the easiest thing to do was for me was to just enlarge it and then compare both images side by side and then just adjust one or the other until they both match the best you can get. Now, moving on, for example, here was a subtle retouch here, and that was the actual end of the wall. I had to reconstruct the end of the wall since I wanted the steps to end before the water. Then I had to reconstruct the end of the wall, and all I did was cut it out and duplicate it over and then redo it to create the new end of the wall, because otherwise, if I eliminate photo number 3, this is what photo number 2 actually looked like. This is where the wall came way down into here, and the wall came way off to here, but I actually cut all that out and retouched all that out, and then it actually went into a waterfall over, which is kind of out of the picture over here. But then what I actually did was draw my guidelines as to what I wanted covered and how, because I was going to put calm, still water in all of this area here, where I actually wanted to cover up all of this to give a new foreground, and I'm completely rearranging things here, so I have to make sure I keep everything right, and that would be this guideline right here. So what I did was I just put myself in a guideline to just let me know what's what and what I wanted to cover up and what I wanted to leave, and I thought that log was pretty decent there. And then where I would give a blend of this water here into the new water, which was photo number 3, then that's where I blended photo number 3 into photo number 2, and then tried to make a complete subtle transition from one into the other, that where you can't tell where one starts and one ends, or vice versa. I could get rid of our guideline there too, and then just go back to fitting it on screen. And then there is obviously some other things we had to think about, even while I have it close up, even the new water line of what this cliff actually looks like. So then I had to erase out the water from photo number 3 so I could match it and make it look like it's water going around. Photo number 2 is cliff. And then looking at a few other things, the actual, some of the fine tuning here, if I turn on my yellow, then you will see that this is the cliff retouch, the reflection. This is the waterfall reflection. And then this is what reflection and retouch I did with the very edge of the shoreline. And then also the subtle water line highlights, and then the new end of the wall. And then this also includes the retouch of the waterfall that I had to make look soft as a slow shutter speed. Because keep in mind, photographically speaking, looking at any of these parts of this photograph, whether or not you see good sharp reflections or not is not artistic. It's actually the shutter speed that you were using to take the photograph. So if we were doing an artistic painting, that's one thing, but doing a photographic retouch is another thing. Now, with the Pennsylvania photo, since you're looking straight down on it, you will be at where the shadows or reflections of the trees are. We will be able to see into the bottom, and then where there's no trees at right here, will show a subtle hint of skylight. And then keep in mind, that sky was the same as the sky I was dealing with the other photo, so I didn't really have to retouch much, because if I had a bright blue sky here on a bright sunny day, and these 3 photos were pretty much on an overcast wet day, that might even jump out at you a little bit as something being a little bit off. But with that said, I don't think there's really too many more things I could go over with in this photo. And this is what I did to actually piece these 5 photos together and just make one composite. And that would be it. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to scribble them out down below. And then if there is any other interest in doing composites like this from the start and all the steps we go through to do it, I would be more than happy to do those. Please feel free to comment below, and we will go from there. Thanks for watching.